Howdy, I'm Jimmy. Thanks for joining me in the garden today. We're going to talk about the Trivium. And not the heavy metal band, Trivium. The Trivium, basically, from what I've gathered, it's just an old method that people used to use to come to understanding, a way to figure things out in an easy step-by-step form. They used to teach everybody the Trivium when they wanted people to think for themselves and figure stuff out. I'm sure a lot of you have already come up with your own Trivium, your own way of processing information, discerning what's real. But I want to talk about the Trivium and then give the example of my life and how I've used the Trivium to guide myself into this lifestyle I'm leading. So the Trivium, just three. There's three things to the Trivium. There's the grammar is the first thing. There's grammar, there's logic, and then there's rhetoric is the final thing. So, those are kind of ambiguous terms. You could break it down as, instead of grammar, it's input, or information, or facts, details. If you're going to figure something out, you need to gather information first. So that's what the grammar part is, all the facts, all the information, all the variables. In my critical thinking video, I kind of talked about this, the who, the what, the when, the where. Who, what, when, where, all the details. That is the grammar. That is the input. So that's the first step you need to take to figure anything out. Like, in my life, I've gathered so much information about things. I always have to look at this, what this side says, what that side says, and then I come up with my own thought on it. I don't take just what one side says anymore, or one person has to say, unless they're totally unbiased and just out for the truth. Then it's pretty easy to flow with somebody in that mindset. They're not trying to blame somebody. They're not trying to point a finger. They're simply just trying to come to a conclusion about what's going on. They're authentic. So, first step is the grammar, gathering all the information. The next step is the logic, or you could say processing, reflection. You're taking all that information, all the facts, all the different variables, the who, the what, the when, the where, and you're taking your time to think it through. How does it add up? How does it make sense to you? And then the final step is the rhetoric, or the output, or the communication, right? Our lives, we're kind of gathering information, we're processing that by living it through, and then we finally output our outcomes into life. We use our words to explain to people why we're living the certain way we're living, the rhetoric. Whereas, if you look at how rhetoric is used to hurt people, it's all that's going on in the television, it's all that's going on the internet right now. They're cutting out the first two steps of grammar and logic, just cutting out your independent research of finding information, your independent thought of processing it. And what's going on is we're in full rhetoric mode. People just sit around and rhetoric to each other. They communicate stuff that they've never actually investigated. They've never actually tested out for themselves. It's just that person said that, and then the other 100 people said it, and now the 1,000 people said it, now 1,000,000 people say it. So the rhetoric becomes true to these people without any actual critical thinking about it, okay? So you got to understand the trivium and how it's a complete set to come to a conclusion. And how we're in an age where they teach the trivium to the elites. That's the funny thing, is they still teach it in like elite schools in some places. You can find it all over the internet, because I mean, it's kind of a whole explosion of information on the internet that's hidden, that you got to search for. It's not going to pop up recommended to you, but it's there if you search deep enough. So the trivium, it's a great way to come to an understanding, a great way to test out this reality, and then finally communicate what you found through the rhetoric. Now I want to take you on a journey of my personal trivium. You know, why did I end up wanting to be a gardener, wanting to farm, wanting to build my house? Why am I so obsessed with freedom and telling people they're not actually free? They're just mind controlled in their mind. They think they're free, but they're not. You know, why is this guy so crazy? You know, and I'll do my best to kind of give you the trivium in my life, and how first I had to start off with the grammar, or all the inputs, right? All of the information I've gathered from being a child, a teenager, to young adult, to now I'm getting middle-aged, I guess. I don't know all these things are kind of made up in the first place, but let's just say I've had a few things that have really stuck out to me in life that have zeroed me in on this path that I'm taking. So we'll start off in my 20s, because up until then, I mean, it's all grammar. You're just learning, picking up stuff. I mean, we live in like an arrested development, to where, like, as a teenager you should probably out running a business, as a kid, you know, doing stuff, but they arrest you and keep you kind of locked in they want to feed you grammar, right? Like, the school wants to keep feeding you these ideas so that they stick. They don't want you to come up with your own ideas on all of these things, like I've been doing my whole life. So we'll start in my 20s. Why do I want to garden so much? You know, I kind of had found out, I mean, it really goes back to when I was a teenager, and I thought, like, people don't grow their own food. Well, that means somebody could control them. That means somebody has power over them. But then I didn't realize until I was in my early 20s that on top of controlling the food to control people, you know, like, you could just control people with clean food. But this is beyond that type of control. They've spiked the food. They've poisoned it with things called glyphosate, caramel color, high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, hexametaphosphates, right? Like, just all sorts of crazy chemicals have been put into your food to preserve it, you know, because they've made up this whole thing about how food must be preserved. No, they're just putting chemicals in it to make you sick, and then you get sick and you got to go to the doctor. It's just a system that constantly feeds itself. You know, what do they tell you at the doctor about food? Eat right. means absolutely nothing when you're eating poisoned food at the market that's been spiked with antibiotics. I mean, when you look at what glyphosate actually is, it's an antibiotic, anti-life. It's really simple. Once you're an organic farmer and you start eating organic food, you're like, man, the organic stuff spoils really quickly. It goes quickly, like it's full of life. It's there for those moments that you eat it, and then it's gone. So what's going on with all this food on the shelf that sits there for months, years? They're poisoning it to slow down the breaking down of the food, okay? It's kind of like a fat person's got all this stuff in them, clogging them up so they can't process food. Well, that's what they've done to most of the food supply, is clogged it up so it doesn't turn quick. It doesn't metabolize quick. It's the only way for all this stuff to be sitting on the shelf so long. So it's one of my big parts of the Trivium in my life was finding out the food was poisoned. And then I was just like, man, shoot. I got to start growing my own food in this age, because they're only going to make it worse. They're only going to find more ways to sneak more stuff into food that's poisonous. And man, that makes me really think of the KFC commercial. Came out this year or last year, where KFC, they take a human and they kind of bring him into the water and like sacrifice him, and then he comes out like a chicken nugget. If you haven't been paying attention to fast food, they're literally taking baby fetus cells and growing genes within these fetus cells and turning it into the chicken. Like, they're literally taking humans and turning them into chicken, and then that's what you're eating at KFC, Taco Bell, all these fast food places, McDonald's, right? I mean, they've just found a way deep within the grammar, right? Deep within what they, or I guess it'd be deep within the rhetoric of what they say about food and how it needs to be a certain way, and how they're doing lab-grown meat right in front of your face right now, and people are eating it. They're eating humans, and they don't know it, and they wouldn't eat it if they were told it. But see, they're shown that they're eating a human on the KFC commercial. I'll have to kind of put in a clip about that. Because it's super insane. I don't eat any fast food, but I really wasn't aware they're already putting human meat in the fucking food. it's there if you want to look deeply into that. But I said all that because, and to me, it's just, okay, what's going on in this age is just, we're far from a basic human situation. So somebody has to start being human again and do the simple stuff. So that's what has prompted me to become a gardener and just try to grow food the way it used to be grown. No chemicals. I don't care about money. I care about the purity and the reality and learning the truth more than making money off of anything here. So I've kind of discussed my reasoning why I'm a gardener. I think it's also pretty obvious why I am a contractor building houses now. Everybody needs a shelter. Everybody needs food. Everybody needs a shelter. I'm just trying to do what we used to do, okay, and not get too fancy here and live off of all these modern tricks and all the modern waste that goes along with civilization. I'm trying to get down to practical things so that people can actually be free again. And this is what the Trivium has brought me. All of these actions that I take through my thorough investigation of life. I'm trying to create freedom here. And I realized in my early 20s, I'm trying to tell everybody all these crazy conspiracies, trying to free their mind. And it took me like a decade. It took me 10 years to realize I can't use my rhetoric to free their mind. They've already gone through all this training and they receive rhetoric of the opposite about every day that they trust. Their authorities, right? They feed them the rhetoric that is anti what I say. I say that people are enslaved. They're debt slaves. They're not actually fully free. They're manipulated and twisted by ideas that aren't even theirs. And so I have found that being an example of freedom is really, it's the best I'm going to be able to do for people, because their minds have been warped and taken to where we can't really I can't directly discuss what freedom is with most people, because it's tainted with war and taxation and fear. I mean, I just think you can't have freedom if you live in fear. That's a pretty obvious thing. But hey, they want to live in fear and say they're free, right? That you take that through the Trivium, you kind of realize that they're slaves and they don't really want to be free. They want to live comfortable. But it's a very important process to take if you want to be free. Really ask yourself what it is. Do all this thorough investigation onto what you think freedom is. I think it's a world without rulers. I think it's a world without war. It's a world without fear. So right now you can't have freedom because the world is filled with fear, warfare, money tricks. And every day, people are okay with that. They're okay with growing the slave systems that they live under. I'm not, never will be. So this is the best I can do at the moment, is to try to not use money, because the more that we use money, the more that we make, the more we're wasting our energy on something they print out to manipulate others with. So to wrap it all up in a nice neat package for you, the Trivium, for me, it's been the guiding light to give me purpose here. I've kind of figured out I need to become free and live free, be this example of freedom so others can even grasp the concept, because it's been long lost. The rhetoric of all the tyrants and the liars and the thieves, they've inverted the whole idea of freedom. It's just like 1984, when people say freedom, they mean slavery. They cheer for their slavery and for their masters. It's blatantly obvious. You'll know when you're free. It starts in the mind. I mean, it starts in the heart, comes to the mind, and then it starts growing outwardly. You just don't have to do as much. You can actually just be. Sit back and be human and enjoy what this all is. It's why I am so obsessed with freedom, because I don't think we can actually understand what this place is, what the truth is, without being free in the first place. But I think I've said enough. I'm going to put some videos below if you want to really listen to somebody break down the Trivium in a more classroom way, you know, in a lecture way. I'm just kind of throwing stuff out at you. But I think you get it. It's a very simple way to come to truth. Grammar or input, logic or processing, rhetoric or the output. It just means you have to put effort forward to come to a conclusion. You can't just listen to somebody else spellcast you and prove to you stuff through words. You have to run everything through your own mind. You've got to gather your own evidence too. Don't forget, if you trust Fox News and what they say, CNN's going to be saying the opposite. Okay, so if you really want to gather information, you've got to look at what this side says, what that side says, and then beyond what those sides said, look at the police report about the incident. Look at historical events that have happened that were similar. It's just there's always a pattern. There's always a clue. There's always more to see if you investigate and go for it. Okay? And you've got to gather all the different perspectives before you even start to process it. It becomes second nature because once you have success with the Trivium and it brings you truth, it doesn't leave you. It's like once you know something, you can't unknow it. So, figured I'd drop some more knowledge today. Hope it helps. I love you.